Well, here I am again, with my Blessed Sacrament in my hand and my hot wardle bottle, well, wardle bottle at my back, my airplane over my shoulder here. That gives me a sense of reassurance that all is right in the world. It's not rocking or falling down or doing anything like that. So it's raining hard outside. That's really fine as far as I'm concerned, because that is the Holy Spirit, and that is the foundation of the rainbow. And the rainbow is always, of course, a symbol of hope, because where there are rainbows, there's rain. There's also sunlight, of course, and which brings us back to Father Sun. And a number of things have come up in my recent experience of what's going out there in the world. And one of them was a very nice little piece on video by a young lady, and she's talking about hippie, and she's really explaining it rather well, but she was obviously a child of hippies. But I was around when hippies came on the scene, and I was already what you might call a straight guy, and I hadn't done weed, but I did drink alcohol, and sometimes to excess, but not seriously. I guess I was sort of an occasional binge drinker. Uh, but anyway, really that doesn't have a great deal to do with where we are today, except that the word hippie to mean uh, happy, interdependent, planetary people, intelligently evolving. And I think we should all wake up to that as a name we can adopt. I'd like to believe that I'm reformed hippie, because I was a straight person and I thought the transition would be impossible. But with the aid of this really simple thing, and now you can do it in cookies, little cookies, you can bridge that gap between being, shall we say, liberated from the chains of the oppressor and free. And of course, it makes you illegal in our current world. And to that extent, it forces you into an underground of survival, an underground of caring, and back to interdependency. Because when you consider it, we're all interdependent. Now, I listen every morning, pretty much when I can, or watch every morning now that I've got into living with a computer, Amy Goodman. And they talk about all these um, knaves, these figureheads, these puppets, and they never talk about um, Cheney, Rumsfeld, all those characters. Going back to the mastermind of world trickery himself, who shall remain nameless. But a lot of it, of course, grew out of the thinking of more than 100 years ago now. John D. Rockefeller was, in his own way, a brilliant man, and with his and he really did lay down a practice, including the Pinkerton's men and the use of double agents and dirty tricks and da 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 da. And I guess he read Machiavelli and one or two of the other how to do it right kind of guys. But in any event, he was an eclectic and a smart man, and he did live in a period when there was a renaissance happening, and we're living in such a period today. Now, the problem was that in those days, this was a big issue. Ah, you know what this is? This is our new wealth, folks, in the movement, the caretaker movement, under the auspices of the Church of the Universe, where we're going to bring this about. And since the Canadian government has given up on it as a currency, we're adopting it as a currency. But with our newfound wealth, that is gold. Remember, people like gold. Well, I'm not too wound up about it, but it does have some value. And these are actually our new age golden pennies, and and basically gold should properly be used as evidence of exchange. Now, the purposes of money is to facilitate and balance exchange. So if I've got something you don't want very much, so I can't ask a great deal from you, except in exchange, and I might not have nothing in my mind except a good idea, and that's all I got to offer, you know. So I don't get off the track here. Well, anyway, the issue is, if you and I are exchanging something and we both feel good about it, then where's money in that? You know, if I'm buying from you, which is different from exchange, then the whole issue of value comes in. How many dollars do I ascribe to this or that or the other? Now, if I want it very much, and you don't want it very much, and if I gave you one of our New Age gold coins in memory, and you say, yeah, or you even stomp it, because we can stomp ours, you know, and then you can discover if it's real gold or it's copper with, you know, gold plating. Well, initially we're going to go with gold plating, you know. So in other words, we have now a current. Now you can't carry many of these, you know. It's not like a credit card system. It's a fundamental return to the principles of equity, trust, probity, kindness, love, harmony, generosity, variety of skills, creativity, adventure, all the good stuff, right? And the reason we can do this is because we're moving now to a leisure state. Now, of course, the problem has always been for the management, you know, to keep all the slaves busy. Well, I have news. A lot of the slaves didn't want to be busy. You know, you could just leave them alone. You don't have to give them a typewriter. You don't have to give them a loom, you know, when the work is to be done. Many of those people, of their own free will contribute the very best they have to offer. And that is their volunteerism, their service to the part of the hippie which is interdependent. You know, the interdependency, happy, interdependent, planetary, because we're planetary. You know, whether we're from another planet or not, the fact of the matter is that the relationship to our well-being and that planet is determined not by the other species on the planet, but by the chemistry, the divine will that is manifested by the sun. Now, I can get into metaphysics. I got theories coming out the yin-yang about that because, you know, having this connection with Neptune all these years, you know, they've been a little ahead in some things, where we've been down here beating up on one another and warring, getting over clan deceit and dirty tricks and blue meanness. And then we got trapped in money, the old money. What do they call it? Fiat money. Fraud money. And not only that, but then they frauded on the fraud. And that's why I blew the whistle in 1972, and that's why any opportunities for me ever to be engaged in anything like intelligence was gone forever. Now, I've talked about this in some of my earlier videos, and I think that the truths that I was seeking a voice for there are still the truths of my life, right? And only today I made a realization that, in fact, I had been heavily brainwashed. And the circumstances were not entirely under my control, as they ever were. Because if you are trapped into some of the old forms of intelligence, of course, you're the last person to really connect the dots, because you're always in denial. You go, no, it can't possibly be the case, you know. But when you look back on it, you go, yeah, that really was. And I'm going to tell this story very briefly to give some substance to my second chapter. So if this is chapter 3, is it now? I guess I've already done a thing called spilling the beans, but I guess I could edit that in here. But basically, in more specific detail, I couldn't keep my mouth shut, right? I was always I was always planning the downfall of what I saw was the oppressive state. I was born with a degree of freedom in my I wasn't motivated by Was I motivated by self-aggrandizement? No, I don't think so. The first time I boxed when I was a tiny boy and was winning lots of little, and then one day I got hit right in the face with this, and that stopped me from ever wanting to be any kind of a, what can you call them, aggressive type. I'm basically, yeah. So anyway, that brings me back to my story. So anyway, apparently, in spite of all my best efforts, and God, I tried, I'd failed my courses, right? Well, yeah, but at the same time, anyway, I was in a reformer mode. I wasn't trying to destroy everything. I could just see how everything could be done so much better, because that's what I've been educated to by my father and people in service who were always, trying to sort of increase the quality of the lifestyle that they were enjoying. They were always aspiring, I suppose, to whatever. Anyway, I guess that's where early ambition comes in, and there's a certain point in your life where you go, "My God, John, that's very selfish. That's very early. That's very personally ambitious. Forget it. Just forget it." So you just, you blow your whistle. You say, "I'm not going to do any of that stuff anymore. No, no way, no way." Because there's somewhere in there you think, this is secular, and I'm really not interested in politics at all. I'm not interested in dirty tricks, blue meanness. I'm really interested in money. But I think we have to have a form. And I think we should return to a cash society. And now that the Canadian government have said this is not worth anything to them, well, it's worth a lot to us. And we're the poor people. And we're the children who collect this stuff. And now we have access to gold, to plate, or whatever you do to it to make it stick. A return to a currency which limits us to exchange, limits us to forgiveness of debt, leads us away from the worship of money, leads us back to a love of God, to a love of creation, and exchange, of course, of goods and services, of course. Should there be a rate of pay? No. Is it important? Yes. What are the understandings? How many days a year do I have to be your slave for you to give me that? Bullshit. I'm not interested. I'm a free man. You're free people. You have been oppressed since 1972, to my certain knowledge. I'm speaking to the Canadian people now, and the British people. It's been the same thing. It's been the same thing since I'm of the old King's Registry. I mean, what is it? Before George, Edwards, King Edward's Registry, and certain ideas and ideals that were carried along with the concepts and the principles and the probities and the integrities which were being reached at that time in 1934 were so profound in the eyes of these warmongers and these banksters and these killer aristocratic families and these Illuminatis, or these whatever they want to call themselves now, Zionists, Nazis. Is there any difference? I mean, what the Jews are doing to the people in Palestine is worse than the Nazis were doing to the Jews in I was going to say in Israel. Well, maybe that's it. Maybe that's running maybe that's the final, the final evil. These Zionists are not really Jews at all. They're fundamental Nazis who are determined with their way, and their way is the way of Albert Pike, who was the 33rd degree Mason, who was one of the most evil people that were ever known in the world, and him and all these other lunatics. I have a great deal of value for religion, but I have a great deal of value for all the religions. And in this book here, this book was published, I think it's very important that religious people think about this deeply, because the first World Conference on Education held in San Francisco, July 1923, that was 13 years before I was born, Out of this conference, the World Federation of Education Association was born. The Constitution of the Federation provided the following article. So conferences shall meet in full session at such place and time as made. Okay. And first all Asian Education Conference was held at Benares on the 26th to 30th December. The conveners, and it was called the Unity of Asiatic Thought. The Unity of Asiatic Thought. And the idea took place in his mind as the essential unity of all religion. There you have it. Well, these were theosophists. Now, I wasn't a theosophist, or if I was around them too little to understand what they were really on about, but I don't know that I was. You know, because when you're little, even in the womb, I think you begin to listen to what's going on. So to some extent, you know, you become pre-programmed, or some do, not all. You know, it depends how much you're loved, how much your mother talks to you in the womb, how much your father cuddles you in the womb and before. How much letting other vehicles evolve, because you're a vehicle, really, you have a soul, and how much you give value to that, the evolution. Again, the interdependency, but not the dependency in the sense of need, but an interdependence. Well, yeah, there is an element of need in society. We can't be lonely. We have to have friends. We have to have communities. We have to have loved ones, and we have to be living in a loving environment for all of that to exist. So it's 10 minutes, 39 seconds, and I'm going to stop right there. That was, I think, chapter 3. I still didn't get to any serious part of the story, but I guess that's why I might have a few chapters yet. Anyway, this is a visual book. I hope there will be other bits of my stuff intercut over this in the course of time, whether I do it or somebody else does it. Anyway, I'm going to stop here. Thank you very much. I'll do another one right away.